Hi, I'm Marcos Nora, and welcome to the IndieSpec Talk Show, a show where we host filmmakers who are still carrying the torch for independent filmmaking in the city. Now, if this is your first time of joining us, that's fine, you haven't missed anything, but this is our very first show. But be sure to join us same time next week when we'll be bringing you more informative interviews with great filmmakers. But before we bring on our first guest, let's start the show. Welcome back. Now, our very first guest is someone who is forging a path for himself while curating the next generation. He has a show on Amazon Prime called The Rejects Club, which he produced alongside his daughter. He gives us a lot of insights in the whole hour that we had a conversation about his journey and what he discovered along the way. His name is Eric Sturgis. So why don't we go ahead to the interview and hear what he has to say. See you on the other side. Why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, my name is Eric Scott. I'm the executive producer and director of the Rejects Club. I also am the executive director of our little production company called IndieSpec Entertainment. I haven't been around the business that long in this capacity, but I think that I've been around the business for quite a long time in other ways. Ultimately, I am excited to be able to bring our show out to the public, out to the people who we want to see it. We think it's an important show. And we're very excited to be here talking with you right now.
We appreciate you. We appreciate you. So tell us what motivated you to create the show.
Well, the motivation, my daughter, when she was 14, had created these characters. And one day on a trip to a film set, because she's also an actress, we started talking about the process of filmmaking and the idea of filmmaking. And I told her, I said, one of the biggest things that I would love to do is start to create TV or film. The biggest problem is trying to find something that anyone would care about. And so she started to tell me about these characters, and she's like, I call it the Rejects Club. And she started just going through each of the main characters that she had already, she did like a drawing of. And I was like, that's kind of an interesting idea. And it was about an hour drive or so. And pretty much that whole hour there and pretty much the entire hour back, we talked about the show and the potential of the characters, where it could go and things like that. And that pretty much propelled us to, go into writing it, I guess. I would have never expected we would be at this part, though. A couple years ago, it's been about 2 years now since we first started writing our little script. So literally, it's all been pretty wild to this point. But the inspiration was because I wanted to get back into creation. I wanted to, further along my daughter's acting career. She had these characters, and as we found, a lot of people really seemed to like it. So, hey, we get to marry all of these different things and put them all into one and have a good time doing it. So that's what we did.
Yeah, no, it's great to see that you support your child in their endeavors and their creative ambitions. We were just talking about how she has risen to the very top of her class as a filmmaker.
Yeah, and she's learned a lot. I wanted not only myself to learn, because it was, it's important for me to learn, and I learned something new pretty much every day. But it was also important for me to have her learn the industry on both sides, both in front of the camera and behind the camera. And, I could say, honestly, she could put together an entire production herself at this point. She may ask some advice, or, she may ask for my help just because I would do it in a heartbeat. But ultimately, she could really go out there and do it on her own if she chose to do so.
So after watching the show, I could tell it had an interesting premise. Give the audience a little background on the show.
The Rejects Club, it's a young adult, teenage drama series. It follows a group of kids who are living in a world of social anxiety and stress, and they want to be noticed. Social status, especially in today's high school world, is everything. And kids are going through so much these days that, it's unbelievable, the stress and the anxiety and the amount of information that they can get. but it's also not to say that, even those who want to be seen, they all obviously have their issues and things that they have to work out. But what we are also showing is that even though somebody who seems like they might be perfect aren't necessarily perfect, and they also have their own issues, might be able to just hide a little bit better. In reality, we are exploring high school in a more realistic way. And we also have a touch of a musical theater background to it. So that's pretty much the Rejects Club.
So yes, I watched an interview of Neil deGrasse Tyson, the scientist, and how he was talking about how kids learn how to operate in the world from the smaller pocket of the schools that they're in. You always have the beautiful kids who everyone will be gravitating towards, who get the nice jobs. You also have the weird kids who no one wants to talk to, but they're smart. And in the real world, they'll be right next to you in the next cubicle. There's a representation of that as well.
It's a very much of a coming of age, not only for those, again, and when you have the social status levels where you have somebody who is the most popular person in the school, the most talented person in the school, they have their issues and they have their problems, but, they also have to understand that what they put out there is also helping to teach the next generation on, what, at least in their world, what they should strive for. And sometimes it's good and bad. And that's, what we explore is there's good and there's bad, no matter which direction that, somebody's in. Again, if they're the most popular kid in school, that, that they lead by example. And unfortunately, and we all know this from being in high school, even the most well-intentioned things that you put out there isn't always good for the next person who tries to duplicate that, because what works for this person may not work for this person. And, sometimes people can get involved in drugs and, and whatnot. And I mean, obviously you don't want to, as an influence to, again, the younger kids that are coming, into high school, to think that it's okay to go out and drink and do drugs and, do all of these things just because the older kids do it. You would hope that the older kids, as they go through, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, that they would mature and that they would show that, hey, here's the progression. If I was going into high school, like in 9th grade, and I'm looking up to the 11th and 12th graders, I'm going to look and see what they do. And that's kind of where, in some respects, our show has a lot of that. There's a lot of parallels between our older characters and our younger characters.
Yeah.
And, it's whether or not if they are going to ultimately buck the trend or if they're going to just continue on, whatever might be good or bad. And that's where this show can get really interesting, because you just never know. Just again, like in high school, you just never know what somebody is going to do as they get older, or what kind of influence that somebody is going to take from somebody else as they get older and as they mature themselves. But again, even these more popular kids, they all have problems too. So, we explore all of that.
We're about to show a clip of your show right now. Could you do a little introduction?
Yeah, absolutely. So the clip that you're going to see is taken from a little scissor reel that we created, which is meant to show the difference of the two sides between the Click and the Rejects. So we have our two sides. The Click, which is the older, more popular kids, very talented. And then you have the Rejects, they're still talented, but they're just younger, not as well known, things like that. So our clip really just shows a little between the two sides and how they do parallel themselves, but also how they're different. So that's the clip that we're going to show right now.
That's really good. That's awesome. Tell us, where can we find the show?
All right, so the Rejects Club show that we have, the prequel episodes, is on Amazon Prime. So you can go to Amazon Prime, type in the Rejects Club, and you'll be able to find the episodes. There's 7 of them. These episodes are a bit different than our regular series, what a regular series would be. These episodes are more character specific, giving a little background history on the characters, and then they all lead into that pilot episode that that we're shopping around right now.
Oh, so the 7 episodes, they're all like pilot episodes that will lead to the actual pilot of the show.
So we kind of take back and go backwards to kind of see, but again, the way the episodes are all interconnected in a way, but they all lead to the same road of leading into that pilot episode.
It's almost like a research episode, like working your way through development of the characters and seeing how you can now really create the actual pilot, and while working through the kinks of production.
These prequel episodes are 15 to 20 minutes long. The pilot episode is a full hour, if you put on network, 42 to 43 minutes long. And but it's also a whole different world, because in the prequel episodes, we didn't have any of the musical stuff in it. Whereas in the pilot, it becomes very relevant, is, having the musical elements that we have with the regular series Rejects Club. And so then, we kind of start, basically it starts out on the first day of high school for all the characters, wherever age they happen to be at.
I know your whole show was done and completed before the whole COVID thing, but quickly give us a rundown of what the whole process was, finding the locations and the casting and everything that went into the production.
All right, so I'll start off with set life first. I love being on set. There's nothing like it. If you've not done a 16-hour film day, then you're missing out. When it's coming, you go, oh my God, I have 16-hour day ahead of me. How am I going to make it? But it's still, there's nothing like this. Once you get rolling, once you get into like creating the scenes and setting up the shots and, letting your team set up all the lighting and all of the set design and that whole thing. And, you almost get immersed in it. Again, we've just got done filming this trailer for a horror film. So, it was very, at night, it was very dark. It was very, very kind of spooky in a way, and we're out in the middle of the woods at 3 a.m., filming a girl getting an arrow through her neck. I mean, like it's crazy, right? So there's nothing like being on set with mask, without mask. It's still fantastic, right? I only usually have 3 major rules that I tell my cast and crew before coming to set. Number 1, come to set ready to work, meaning know your lines, know your job responsibilities, your character, things of that nature. Number 2, don't be difficult to work with. Nobody wants to come in set and deal with a diva. Nobody. It doesn't matter. Do not come to set to be a diva. It makes a bad experience. And if something goes wrong, it makes it even worse. But then ultimately, and the biggest thing, most importantly, come to set to have a great time. We're going to be there all day long. We're going to be there till our eyes pop out of our head. Come there to have a good time, because it's what helps. Whenever you do have those long days, it really, really helps. And the one thing that I've found above pretty much anything else, especially on our sets, that people will leave exhausted, wiped out. Yeah. But the number one thing that they say, wow, it was a long day, but I had so much fun. And that's what it's all about. Creating's fun. As far as location scouting, that's a nightmare, especially when you have so little people to help you to do it, and you don't really have a budget to do it. When you have a budget and you have location scouts, it's not so bad, because then, at least on my end as being the director or whatever, I don't have to deal with all that. I just have to they take their pictures, they give me ideas, and then they come to me and they say, here's the location that we have. I'm like, perfect, let's go. That's what these people get paid to do. Indie films and shows and things, a lot different. For Rejects, we had to find 5 separate locations for our filming, and thank God, one, I have some really good friends who let us film at their houses, and they were perfect for what we needed as far as those go. And then I want to just special shout out to Robert Donaldson again. This guy saved our lives, because if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have had our school locations, we wouldn't have had our theater locations, and things like that. It really is the most nauseating and most uncomfortable thing to go up and ask people. It's like, can I use your school to film? Well, how long is that going to take? Oh, 5 days roughly. And they're like, so, again, and bless those people who go out there and are able to do it. Now, as far as our casting process, when we did the original Rejects pilot episode, because we shot the pilot episode first, it was the very first thing we shot. That was interesting. For Rejects, we have a very ensemble cast. Yeah, we have our leads and we have our supporting and, downwards, but we rarely have a true ensemble cast. We had 45 characters that we needed to cast for. And let me say that again, 45 characters we had to cast for. So obviously we had our lead cast members, we had a supporting, like I said, and then we have our smaller role background actors, but we gave them all names. And then our philosophy has always been that sometimes you don't know gold all the time until you actually see it. Devin wasn't originally supposed to be a lead character, but when we casted the person that we casted for it, and then we started kind of getting into the groove and realizing how much importance that Devin really had to our overall story, it really was one of those, like, if we didn't cast the person that we casted, and because of how great they were, probably wouldn't have been as involved as he ultimately ended up becoming in the pilot. So, you never know where gold is going to, come strike and everything. So our thing was, we wanted even our lower characters. They may not be involved in a storyline. They may not be involved directly, but they're there. It helps also keep up with continuity, which was a thing for us, kind of a deal. And it gets you to know a whole lot more people. So that was important to us as well. But now with the actual casting, this was crazy. A lot of people, when you go to casting, you have set up where you're sitting at a table. You have yourself and a couple other people who help make the decision. You have the people come in, they read. Ours was, we did that. We had our people who were sitting there, and they would come in and they would do a reading for a character. But then they also had to sing, because, again, we're shooting a musical, so we had to make sure they could vocally sing. But then once they were done with us in that room, they had to go over to the next room, and they had to work with our choreographers. And then they had to actually dance at the next section of the audition process. Then we, as a casting group, we narrowed our field down for each character, and we invited them back to a callback, and they had to go through the process again in a different material. And then we were able to cast from there. And, and it's interesting when you're sitting there, sometimes you just know.
Yeah.
Somebody walks in, you just know that person is that role. For instance, in the prequel episode, there's a character named Jace. Jace is played by Alex Island, and when he walked in to the casting room, he probably one of the first ones that we were really just like, that's our Jace, because he came in. Now, like I said, my daughter had drawn these characters before. Mm-hmm. So, the way that she drew Jace, he had like this big puff of hair, it's kind of like a little unkept. And when Alex walked in, he had the hair.
Really?
He had the hair. And we told him, like, I've told my cast why we cast him. They all asked, like, why did you cast me for this role? And we told them, what ultimately led us to cast each one of them. And I thought it was kind of cool. So that way it also helps develop them as actors to, let them know, hey, here's what really attracted you for us to cast this role. When Alex walked in, it really, he fit the character. He perfect age, the whole thing, but it was the hair that got it, and that's why we cast him as Jace. We knew it, like, that was the easiest one. When we sat down as a group, when we did the final casting, Jace Alex, done. Okay, well, who could look like Jason's older brother? Rylan, done. And super talented kids. These kids that we got to work with, just unbelievably talented, and made our lives really, really difficult. I will say there was one little bit of a secret that I'll let you all in on. I don't even know if any of the cast or crew knows this. I think that one person might, but one character, I'm not going to say which, but one character was cast by person A. We all we had our discussions about it. It was one of the last characters that we cast. Ultimately, we went with this person. It didn't sit well with me because I really liked another person just a little bit more for reasons. I had to make an executive decision on my way home that nope, we got to remove this person and we're putting this person in that person's place. That was probably one of the craziest things, but that's something that you get to do as, in my particular role where I can make the decision.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. And I will say I was right. That the person who played that role and that character, perfect.
So it's not new news that technology had made it really easy for filmmakers to create content. And this had been going on for a while, and things were picking up and were speeding up too. But now everything has come to a grinding halt as the whole pandemic has changed everything about everything. So tell us how it has affected your production.
So it's interesting. So we have another project that we have been working on. It's a 80s style horror film. So we actually have filmed this. But we're only filming a sizzle reel / trailer.
Okay.
As opposed to filming the whole thing, because we're looking for investors.
Yeah.
And so on the film set itself, it was different than what it was before. All the crew wearing masks, doing temp checks whenever we all show up, and having a COVID specific person that's there that is making sure that all of the guidelines and asking all the questions and making sure everybody is following along with the guidelines that the CDC had let out.
What give us an example of what those guidelines are. Sorry, I didn't mean to distract you, but
Yeah, no problem. So again, like I said, with the wearing of the masks, you have to, the crew has to wear that. The cast has to wear it until they actually go to the actual filming. Then they can take them off. Trying to stay as social distant as you can, which is really a challenge, because I know we have a director of photography who's there with the camera, and me as a director, I'm going to go and look at the camera and make sure that it's good, a good shot, and make sure we're talking about the angles and how we want things to move, and and pan and tilt and all the good stuff, and so they can be kind of challenging. So you're unfortunately in the business, you're just going to have to deal with some of that. But if you do everything you're supposed to beforehand, check the temperatures. Make sure you ask them the questions that you're supposed to ask. Have you been in contact with anybody with COVID? Have you experienced any symptoms of COVID? It's very much like going to a doctor's office. If I had to give a comparison, if you've been to a doctor's office and they have you sign a thing, and all of our people had to sign a waiver, that basically they stated they do not have it. They're not at a risk of anybody to get it. And that's what, you can only do the best that you can do with it. Washing your hands. We had a hygiene, hand washing station set up. We had hand sanitizer. The actors and all of us are supposed to have a personal hand sanitizer on us. So, we're pulling it out in between takes and, sanitizing our hands. Or, if we're having to do this, the equipment, our director of photography was the only one who could touch his camera. We couldn't have a grip go over it, and do anything with it or whatever. It was just that one specific person, the person who was doing boom audio. That was only the person who could touch the boom audio, and that's just the realities of it. But you do the best that you can do to make everybody on the set feel safe. And once they feel safe, it kind of starts to go out of your mind a little bit. That's why you have the COVID person. You have somebody who is there, who it's always on their mind. And if you start to slip, I mean, you have a mask on all day long, right? And it starts slipping down and you're still able to breathe out of your nose. It's a great thing. And they're like, hey, and you're like, oh, yeah, okay. So you raise back up. And you make a joke of it. You have some fun with it. But that was probably the biggest differences, but everything fell in line. Like we got done what we needed to get done. It didn't take any extra real time, as far as setting up the shots and setting up the equipment that we needed to have set up and all that type of stuff. It didn't change a whole lot, to be honest with you. It just it mostly was the beforehand, just making sure everybody understands what needs to happen throughout, and then obviously for the duration it wasn't bad.
Welcome back. Now, due to time constraints, we couldn't bring you the whole interview that I had with Eric Sturgis, which was a very insightful interview. But check out next episode where we'll bring you the other half of the conversation. So thanks for watching, and we'll hope to see you same time next week. Recent global events have seen the rise of video consumption, and now businesses are looking for alternative ways of reaching out to old and new clients. This makes video marketing even more important today. At Pex Mill Studios, we're dedicated to creating high-quality video content that will create great awareness for your business. With a combination of over 15 years of experience, great visual storytelling, and a professional crew, we aim to create the kind of videos that turn viewers into clients. Helping your business grow is our business.